After the guilty verdict was handed down against him in the New York case, well, President Trump was handed some good news in two of his other cases, the one in Florida as well as the one over in Georgia. Good news to the point that even CNN ran the following headline, quote, "Trump scores massive legal victories delaying Georgia and Florida cases." And so let's go through these developments together. To start with, over in Georgia, the appeals court has placed a pause on the entirety of the election RICO case. Specifically, the appeals court, they agreed to review whether or not Fani Willis should be disqualified from the case altogether. And in so doing, they put a stay on all of the ongoing proceedings. Here is what the order from the county clerk over in Georgia actually read. Quote, "The proceedings below in the Superior Court of Fulton County are hereby stayed pending the outcome of these appeals." Now, this freeze on the case came after quite a bit of legal maneuvering. To start with, as I'm sure you remember, several months ago, in January, February, and March of this year, Fani Willis was accused of impropriety because it turned out that she had actually hired her romantic partner, a man who was having an affair with her, to lead the prosecution against President Trump and his other co-defendants. In fact, quote, "Earlier this year, defendant Michael Roman moved to disqualify the district attorney, alleging a conflict of interest and financial misconduct, and co-defendants joined with additional allegations of prosecutorial misconduct." Among many other issues, there was the central question of whether or not Fani Willis was receiving essentially kickbacks in the form of this prosecutor taking her on lavish vacations around the world after he was paid with hundreds of thousands of dollars from her DA's office. Quote, "Trump and some of his co-defendants have been trying to get Willis disqualified from the case because of a romantic relationship she had had with Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor she hired to help handle the case. The defendants argued that Willis financially benefited from the relationship with Wade, who defense attorneys say covered several vacations for the pair." Now, eventually, in February of this year, there was a several-day-long, very high-profile hearing wherein you had Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, the lead prosecutor, as well as about a dozen of their co-workers and acquaintances take to the stand and answer questions. And even though many of the explanations they gave appear to be a bit shaky, with some of them being contradictory with the actual evidence, well, ultimately, the Fulton County judge in charge of the RICO case, he allowed Fani Willis to stay on the case. Quote, "In March, after what amounted to a mini-trial where attorneys for Trump and his co-defendants sought to prove their case against Willis and Wade, Judge McAfee found that there was not enough evidence to firmly prove Willis financially benefited from the relationship. Willis's testimony in televised proceedings put her personal life in the spotlight, turning discussion away from the charges Trump and others face in Georgia. The judge ultimately decided Willis would be allowed to continue to helm the case if Wade stepped down, which he later did. However, and this is the important part, the judge did leave open the option for an appeal. Quote, "In March, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee acknowledged he was in novel legal territory and allowed defendants to appeal his decision to a higher court." And so the legal team for Mr. Michael Roman, one of the co-defendants of President Trump, he did just that. He appealed the decision. And just last month in May, the appeals court agreed to review the ruling. Now, the appeals court, they set a hearing for October for when they will actually review the case, although their actual decision might not come until the year 2025. Now, initially, the judge who is overseeing the RICO trial, he said that while this appeal is playing itself out, he will still be able to continue to hear motions and issue rulings. However, the appeals court ultimately disagreed. Quote, "Citing a Georgia Supreme Court case ordering the stay of criminal case proceedings during an interlocutory review, the Georgia Court of Appeals ordered on June 5th a stay on all proceedings in Fani Willis's case against former President Donald Trump and 8 co-defendants." Which is, of course, great news for both President Trump as well as for his other co-defendants, given the fact that now, with the appeal hearing just for this Fani Willis disqualification question taking place in October, and an actual resolution probably not coming until the year 2025, well, there is little to no chance of the RICO trial restarting before the election. And so that's over in Georgia. Over in Florida, there was a similar situation, with the judge there also putting the classified documents case on an indefinite hiatus. Specifically, and we did cover this in a lot greater detail in a previous episode, after it was discovered that Jack Smith and his team of federal prosecutors did not keep everything in Donald Trump's boxes in the same order that they said they did, Trump's legal team, they issued a court filing and complained to the judge about not being able to find what they were looking for, and therefore they asked the judge to postpone the trial. Now, the reason that they were able to do this was because what they found in the actual boxes contradicted what Jack Smith told the court previously, which wound up forcing the judge to ask for clarification. Were the documents in the boxes in the same order as when they were seized and digitized? Eventually, despite prosecutors, again, telling the judge previously that everything in the boxes was exactly as they found it, well, eventually the prosecutor submitted a filing in which they admitted to misleading the court on this particular matter. In just a small footnote in their filing, the prosecutors admitted to effectively misleading the judge by writing earlier that the evidence was exactly the same as when it was seized. Here's specifically what that little footnote said in the court filing, again submitted by the prosecution. Quote, "The government acknowledges that this is inconsistent with what the government counsel previously understood and represented to the court." And indeed, just as Trump's legal team requested, Judge Eileen Cannon, she went ahead and she placed the entirety of the case on an indefinite hold. Specifically, back in May, just last month, Judge Cannon postponed the entire case indefinitely. Here's specifically what she wrote as a part of her order. Quote, "The court also determines that finalization of a trial date at this juncture, before the resolution of the myriad and interconnected pretrial and Classified Information Procedures Act issues remaining and forthcoming, would be imprudent and inconsistent with the court's duty to fully and fairly consider the various pending pretrial motions before the court. The court therefore vacates the current May 20th, 2024 trial date and associated calendar call to be reset by separate order following resolution of the matters before the court, consistent with the defendant's right to due process and the public's interest in the fair and efficient administration of justice." Meaning, as a practical matter, that the case, as of May, has been postponed until further notice. And of course, the underlying issue at play in both this case in Florida as well as the other case over in Georgia, the RICO case, is that if the cases are postponed beyond the date of the 2024 election, and if Trump happens to win that election, well then both of those cases are going to be postponed by at least another 4 years, since Trump cannot be tried while serving as the sitting president, as the commander-in-chief. Now, for your reference, the election is only 151 days away, and so we'll have to wait and see whether these myriad of pretrial motions that Judge Cannon mentioned can actually be resolved by then. Until then, though, if you'd like to go deeper into either this Florida case or this new development over in Georgia, I'll throw all my research notes. You'll be able to find them down in the description box below this video if you're the type of person that likes to dig into the weeds. All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment, I'd like to introduce today's sponsor, which is Native Path's Collagen Peptides. If you're looking for a way to increase your bone strength as well as to soothe joint pain, well, this right here might be a great option for you. Dr. Chad Walding out of Texas, he created this formulation and he actually wrote a fairly large article explaining why, in his opinion, everyone over the age of 50 should be drinking this. Essentially, his main thesis is that these grass-fed, pasture-raised collagen peptides, they contain a unique protein which naturally declines in humans when we hit about the age of 30. And by supplementing it, you can increase bone strength, soothe joint pain, minimize wrinkles, minimize cellulite, make your hair thicker, make your nails stronger, and so on. And frankly, he must be doing something right because these peptides, they have thousands of 5-star reviews. They have over 1 million customers, and they've now shipped over 4 million of these jars. And so check it out. Dr. Walding is actually offering our viewers up to 45% off. Just head on over to getnativepath.com/Roman. The link will also be down right there in the description box below. And also the best part is that if you're not fully satisfied, they have a 365-day money-back guarantee. And so trying it is pretty much risk-free. Again, the link to the article explaining the science behind these peptides, it'll be right there in the description box below. And just legally, I do have to mention that none of these statements have been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. And of course, individual results may vary. And then until next time, stay informed. Most importantly, stay free.